Just gonna go with the flow right now and make sure everything's good before we get into the juiciness of this episode. And with that being said, I see an advertisement on YouTube and we're good. Wow. Oh my god, I'm so excited. That makes me so happy. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it, and this has been like a 5-minute challenge to overcome, but we're finally here. My name is Xander. You're tuning into the All In Show. Thank you so much. I have my guest today, Leroy Mora, who is the independent candidate for Pueblo County Sheriff's Office. And he has spent over, correct me if I'm wrong, 27 years or 20 years?
27 years in the law enforcement, 20 years in the military.
Okay. So he has some experience and some knowledge, and this is going to be a very interesting and fun conversation. To my left, this is the first time doing a collaboration with Derek from Street Champs, and I know he's had experience interviewing people in the political realm, so this is going to be a very fun episode to have two different hosts collab with questions for someone in our community who wants to bring change within Pueblo. So Leroy, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's not easy when you're running for sheriff's office or any political office or position, and you have to carve away, just an hour or two of your time to go and do something like a podcast. So thank you.
Yes, no, thank you guys for having me here. I appreciate you giving me the time just to answer your questions and hopefully share good information with our community.
Absolutely. Everybody in the chat, everybody tuning in, if you have any pertinent, important questions that you want to ask Leroy for the community of Pueblo, make sure to put it in the chat. Do not put anything that is bad. I don't want no harassment. I want positive questions. I want serious questions. I don't want it to be negative. So just to point that out there. But we're going to get into this, Leroy. So are you a Pueblo native?
I am. Yep. I grew up here. I grew up on the south side of Pueblo. I have 5 brothers and sisters. We were raised by a single mom in the Santa de Cristo housing project over off of Sprague. So they're rebuilding all those new housing units. So we spent many years in the Boys and Girls Club throughout there. I went through all the education here. I went to Washington Elementary, which is no longer, I don't believe it's an elementary school anymore. I went to Corwin Middle School, which is still there. And then I went to Central High School. I graduated from Central. From there, I joined the service. And then I continued in the military. And so my whole life has been Pueblo. I've raised my family here. My grandchildren are growing up here. So this community really is my hometown. It shaped me who I am today.
I like that. It's
invested.
That's a good way to put it. When you have someone in this position and they're from Pueblo, it makes a bigger impact because you grew up here, and you're trying to make a change within Pueblo. So I always love hearing that. But I think one of the big questions people are asking is, why is it you decided to come into the race a little later after the primary election?
So that's been a big question for everybody. And usually the question has always been is, why now? And my answer is, why not now? So if you know me, I built my career for over 30 years for this moment today. I've worked at the sheriff's office. I got my education. I went to the FBI National Academy. So I've been preparing for this moment for 30 years. So it wasn't something that if I take you back 4 years, that was the time I truly wanted to run. But there was a different plan in my life. I was diagnosed with cancer back in 2020. So for me, that's where I decided I needed to retire. Thank God I had enough time to retire. I retired. I took care of my health. I got a full-time job back at the community college, helping out with the law enforcement academy. So I kind of segued my back into the law enforcement. And so this year was my 5th year of being cancer-free. I'm an independent or unaffiliated candidate. So I don't participate in the primary. That's for candidates for the parties. So once the primary was over, that was my opportunity to get into the race. And the only way I could get into the race is I have to get signatures on a ballot. So we have to go around, get all the signatures. That's the only way an unaffiliated can get on the ballot. We were very successful. We got double the amount within probably a 72-hour period, which from my understanding, they say that's pretty good.
That is, wow. I'm kind of, that got me a little.
Someone told me though, I don't know. I don't know if it matters. Just a funny thing that you were in Costa Rica, though.
No,
Where were
not
you?
Costa Rica. I was on vacation with my family. Yes,
Where were you?
Dominican Republic.
The DR. That's pretty. That's pretty.
Yes.
But like, a lot of people would say, were you the one collecting the signatures yourself?
No, I had a team collecting it. Remember, you don't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I had a team collecting the signatures.
I mean, that's fair. Honestly, it's not. It's neither here nor there. It's just an interesting fact that I heard people bring up.
Well, some people think that's actually pretty good, and to be that successful and not be here, some people think that's pretty good.
I'd
Yeah.
say honestly, yeah, it means you have a team behind you, and I think you alone can't be the only one to grow anything that you do. You got to have a team, and I think the goal for anything behind like a team or a business is you want to be able to step away while your team is making the moves. I don't know how important it is for the actual political candidate to go out and get signatures, but for that to become successful without you being there, I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it depends on like perspective and the community. But we're here. That's in the past. And you made it into, what do they consider this? So the primary passed. Is this now, what do they call that?
So now we're into the election season. So prior to this was they needed to be a primary. The only way a primary exists if there's two candidates from one party. So if there's not, they're going to still continue that path. So what's unique about my role is I have to get signatures. I'm not a party candidate. I have to go get signatures. And I look back at the amount of signatures we got. That's Pueblo's voice speaking out. They're saying they wanted another candidate. They all came out in signatures. We had people waiting in line for petition books. And I look back that's a testament to this community knowing me. I've been in this community for 30 years and 50 years for my whole life and beyond. So people know who I am. They know my character. They know my integrity. They know what I poured into this community for the last 30 years, my friends who I grow up with. So it wasn't surprising to me that we got the signatures because this community knows me. And I've served them faithfully for 27 years. And I have a great reputation with the community, with the government agencies. So for me, that's a testament to how I serve this community. Now this community is coming back and saying, now we're going to serve you and support you.
Mm. So is it specifically for independent candidates they have to get signatures, or is that like required by any kind of party to get onto the ballot?
So so other parties do require signatures. So you can get on their ballot through a signatures or through their election. I believe they have a group meeting with their party, and you have to get so many votes to be put it on the ballot. I can tell you many candidates have failed getting signatures, or some candidates take a very long time. So yes, they can get on that the same way, but my only pathway was the 1,000 signatures.
Okay, so for this current election, we have Lucero. Is he counted within the election itself as well as a candidate to be reelected for sheriff?
No, he's no longer a candidate. So that was the purpose of the primary, because there was two Democrats. And so now the Democrats voted who they want to be on the ballot in November. So they elected to vote in my opponent, and Sheriff Lucero will not be in this election.
Okay, that clears that up. That gives me some more knowledge on how this process works. Is there like a specific reason you chose to go independent, or is it because like there's already a Democratic candidate? And I don't know your political views, but in, I guess, history or whatever you want to call it, there's two parties, right? Republican
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and Democratic. And I'm unfamiliar that you could go independent. So is there like a reason why you chose that route rather than like choosing a party?
So I didn't choose the route. So I had been a Democrat for many years, but a few years back, my wife and I made the decision to go unaffiliated. A lot of times we look at the political realm and we don't always agree with what the political parties do. So we felt being unaffiliated, we have an advantage. So now we can go out and we can pick the best candidate, regardless of what party it is. We can pick that candidate and we can vote for him. For me as an unaffiliated, I'm benefited from it because anybody from either party can support me.
Okay, I see how that works. I think a big misconception within the actual jobs and responsibilities of sheriff is kind of twisted. Um, you hear a lot of people lately within this current election in Pueblo that people think the sheriff has the power to do, you know, X or A all the way through Z, you know, and be able to do stuff that the sheriff actually has no responsibility over. Could you elaborate on what the jobs and responsibilities of the actual sheriff has that the community is misinformed on?
Right. So when you look at the actual position of the sheriff, it's a statutory position. It's an elected position. So if you go to Colorado Revised Statutes, Title 30, it actually outlines what the duties and responsibilities of the sheriff are. So for example, he has to be the custodian of the jail. So meaning he operates the jail. He has to be the county fire warden. So when you see, you know, the fire ban information and stuff, that is set by the sheriff. He's also responsible for providing court security. So when you go into the courthouse, you see the deputies wanding people through. That's part of his responsibility. Civil process is also part of his responsibility. So when there's a civil order that needs to be served or executed, that's the sheriff's role, is to go out and do that. He also is responsible for issuing concealed handgun permits. He has to have a wildland fire team, a search and rescue, a dive. So those are the statutory duties for the sheriff. And so when people look at then that kind of dovetails into other things that the sheriffs do within those root duties. But the main thing is what people really want to know: what does a sheriff do and what are his responsibilities? Go to Title 30. It tells you exactly what the sheriff's powers and responsibilities are.
Okay.
He's pulling it up right here. Can you zoom in with Command Plus?
I'm making sure I have the right one.
Nice.
Okay.
And you could drag the whole window over,
Yeah.
like just so it's like not cut off on the left side. Nice.
Perfect. And this is the statue you're talking
Correct.
about
Yeah,
right
if
here?
you go down, there's a lot of things there, but it'll show you what the duties of the sheriff and responsibilities of the sheriff are.
Okay. Could it be here?
Or, I mean, the top one, if you just press see more. Or right there, yeah.
Yeah, you should get a list of CRSs.
I think it's here.
Yeah, probably if
Right
you
there.
click on that Colorado Revised Statute, Title 30, on justice law, it might list all the different statutes.
Wow, it gives you a whole breakdown.
Well, I think this is part of the problem. You know, nobody our age is invigorated to vote or learn anything of this because it's so complicated. Like the way you're speaking right now is how a lot of my friends and a lot of my friends' friends, like they don't give a shit about anything political, and if anything, they hate cops. You know, so it's like what I respect, like, what do they do? Like you said, these are all what they're supposed to do, but in reality, like it's more than all this right now. It's community outreach. I don't know. Like, do you feel that? Do you feel like everyone?
I'll tell you, it goes back
you
to
guys?
goes back to leadership.
Okay.
Okay, what you see happening in an organization starts from the top, and if the organization is going in the wrong direction, I blame leadership. That's where it starts. So my goal is to go into the sheriff's office if elected. I need to change the leadership and I need to change the culture, because we have to recognize what is the role and what are we there for. We're there to protect the citizens, right? We're there to enforce the law. We're there to uphold the Constitution. But sometimes when we don't have good leadership driving them, people have a tendency to maybe go in the wrong direction. So for me, I totally understand. There's people that have distrust for the police, and maybe they have experiences to lead them down that road. But as the sheriff, I think my role would be is to go back to the basics, let people know we're there to serve them, right? We're there for the community. We're there for the citizens. We're there to protect their rights. But sometimes citizens maybe don't feel that way. And so that's why I think now's the time for change. Now's the time to come into our community, to have good leadership. And it starts from the top, and it will go all the way down through the organization, because the lowest level workers will follow what their leaders do. And if you have leaders that don't care, you have leaders that don't mentor, you don't have leaders that don't train, then they're going to do what they do as employees. So I understand what you're saying, how the community sometimes doesn't feel supported by the police, But that's the job of the sheriff. I believe that's also the job of the chief of police. We have to collaborate. We have to build the public trust, because right now I can tell you there's probably some broken public trust, and the way you get that back is you can't do it in words. You have to do it in actions. And so what my goal would be is I would go in with my plan. I would build my leadership team. I would start internally first. You have to start inside.
Definitely.
And fix the inside first, and then we can move outside and move into the community. So change is a process. It's not going to happen overnight.
Definitely. I mean, speaking of inside change, just like 2-3 weeks ago, there was that officer. Can you Google this for me, bro?
Yeah.
There was this officer in Pueblo just got sentenced to 90 days in the county jail for I don't know how many photos of child porn, and he got 3 years of probation, and he was a deputy. Was he not?
No, he was not.
That
What was it? He was an officer.
Police officer.
He's just police officer. What was his name? Let's give this guy. Let's make this guy famous.
Okay. So when did that happen?
August
Like 2
5th.
weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me look it up. You guys keep talking and I'll look it up.
Like why I've heard this is the second incident. Like, why is that happening? What is your opinion on that?
So people are people. People are human. Nobody is above making mistakes. Nobody is above making bad choices. But here's where it matters is what do we do with an officer that makes a bad choice? We have to hold them accountable just like everybody else. So if an officer breaks the law, he has to be accountable just like a citizen does. If a citizen breaks the law. So just because we wear a badge, one, it doesn't give us the right to do whatever we want. We have to be trusted by the community because we are there to enforce and uphold the laws. When we break the law, we should be held just as accountable as anybody else. And that's the way it should be. Equal rights. Enforcement has got to be consistently and equally and fair across the board. I don't care if you're an attorney. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a police officer. You break the law, you have to be held accountable.
So do you think that crime is justified for him, or like that punishment? Sorry.
That wouldn't be something I decide. What our role is to find the individual, get the facts together, give them to the district attorney's office, and then it has to go through the court process. That's not in the sheriff's or the police wheelhouse. All we can do is provide that. Then it goes to the district attorney, then it goes through the court process. So then that's how that works.
So the DA is really the person that gave him that light of a sentence?
Well, it goes through the court system. I don't know who gave him that, but I can just tell you it goes through that. That's the judicial process. It has to go through law enforcement. The DA ultimately charges, goes into the court system.
Because if you ask a lot of Puebloans, they're going to say, man, I can jack something from Walmart. I could walk out with a whole cart full of groceries, and I'll get more time for this guy who's really poisoning the whole society of this entire state, you know? Like this, it's crazy, is it not? Is anyone else upset about this? I get
It does seem like the repercussions of people's negative actions are more lenient, and the sentences
It doesn't make sense.
are lenient, where someone can go into Walmart or they can steal product and they can just walk away, and you don't have any good Samaritans, or if they get caught and it comes down to the legal system, it's a very light sentence. So I don't want to say the system's broken, because I, as a person within the community, as a person within the United States, I want to have faith that we can make the right decision when it comes down to something like this, and we can provide or give the right sentence to this type of action. So I can understand where you're coming from, because I don't see how the whole sentencing would be the sheriff's decision. But as far as like policies or
I think people have that misconception, like, is what ties it back to it, is like people don't know what the sheriff does. That's what my initial I guess pushback to your question was, you know. And we don't necessarily, I don't want to say we don't care, but it's like these are the huge issues that are just getting glazed over. You know, it's like when I don't know, this is when do our public representatives, you know, which hopefully you will be one day, it's like when will someone push back on this? I don't know. It seems like there's no pushback on any of this.
Right. And you go back to everything. So we need a united voice. And I know a lot of citizens are out there lobbying against some of this stuff. We don't have enough of them doing it. We need a united voice. And as the sheriff, I encourage all the citizens, if there's a law that comes out or there's something that you don't agree with, you have to speak up. But a lot of people don't get involved because they want somebody else to do it, or they, maybe they don't have the time. But at the end of the day, it's everybody's responsibility. If you're a citizen in Pueblo County, if you're a citizen of the state of Colorado, you have the right and you have the voice to speak up. The unfortunate thing is we need more people to do that. We don't get enough people. We can, as political figures, we can say and we can do what we want. We need the voters, we need the supporters behind us, and that's what we need. And I totally understand your frustration. But at the end of the day, this is our community, not just one person's, not just one judicial system. It's Pueblo's community. Every citizen that lives here, it's our community. If we want a better community, we have to stand up. We have to be the one to use the voice. When we don't do that, it's going to continue down this path. And that's the whole reason I'm doing this. I want to see change for Pueblo. I want to see people held accountable and make sure that they're getting an appropriate sentence.
I see where you're coming from. I see this issue across the whole United States, and I hope that one day, with the power of the people and the good faith of our political representatives, they stick up for what's right. But you see it very often, even in our community of Pueblo, that there's a hidden agenda. So if we're talking about a situation like this, why would the DA grant him such a lenient charge? I don't know. Maybe as a person from the outside looking in, maybe the DA is talking to
The chief of police.
the chief of police, and they're making a deal to where it's like,
So Joey Musso claims that he found this USB drive that this guy got caught with like 4 years ago, and like he said he brought it up to the chief of police, and he said don't do anything about it.
Yeah, don't know anything about that. And like I said, whatever the district attorney, that might be questions for them. What brought them to the decision that they did? Law enforcement, which you have to understand, law enforcement provides all this stuff. So if you look at the criminal justice system as a whole, it's broken up into three things. You have law enforcement, you have courts, and you have correction. Law enforcement's the tip of the criminal justice system. So we make the arrest. We do all that stuff. Then we hand it to the district attorney. It moves out of our wheelhouse. It moves out of our realm, right? It goes to the district attorney and into the court system. So if you understand the criminal justice system, the police are doing their job. They're getting the stuff that needs to go. We just need to make sure that as it moves up the chain in the criminal justice system, that there's justice.
Mm-hmm.
do you think there's a solution or like a workaround within the hiring process to where we can do a more extensive background check so that way we know we're hiring quality people instead of I guess people like this guy, to where it's like,
What's his name? Gerardo
Mejia,
Mejia.
to where we're hiring quality people, because this brings distrust into the community. And I work in EMS and I work with law enforcement officers, so I have conversations with them. And I mean, throughout my life experience, I have always had respect for law enforcement and have faith, but I know it's not, the badge you should be mad at. It's the person behind the badge and what they do, because there's good cops out there. But is there like a solution to where we can do a more extensive background check within the hiring process, so that way we can weed out like people like this? Do you think that's something that would be possible?
So when you look at hiring process, this type of situation, it's not unique just to policing. It's in every other fields. This happens to be a police officer. It happens in every profession. There's bad actors in every profession. So we can't just single out and say this is a police issue, because you can look at any other profession and there's people that do bad things. Look at doctors that do bad things. Maybe, whatever profession it is. When you look at the hiring process, we have a good process. We go through the background checks. We do psychological exams. We do interviews. We do what we can do best, right? We can't predict the future. We can't predict if somebody makes a bad choice, right? All we can do is, what do we do after that bad choice? I think we have good hiring practices right now. Would I like to see it be more streamlined and faster? Absolutely. But the state gives us pretty good guidelines on how to select police officers. we can't predict if that police officer is going to make a bad choice. If you look at the thousands of police officers across the country, we have maybe 1 or 2% making bad choices like this. That's not terrible. So you have to look at the mass instead of just one incident. And that's what I tell people, focus on all the good police officers that are out there right now. Focus on all those good deputies that are working in the sheriff's office, that are patrolling our streets, the police departments that are working good day in and day out. We forget about those because we focus on somebody that made a bad choice. We need to switch that narrative. We need to start praising those people that are doing a great job, that are doing the work, that are putting in the long hours, and not focus on 1 or 2 officers that make a bad decision, because we need to hold them accountable, but we need to praise the folks that are still working.
I mean, I honestly, I agree with you, but it's like, if I send my kid to District 60 or District 70, either one, and they get molested at District 60, I'm going to be like, damn, like, I don't trust any teacher at District 60 anymore.
Right.
You know, I'm going to move my kid to Colorado Springs to the school district. It's like, if one bad apple spoiling the bunch, like, we got to look at how they're farmed. Like, what's going on here? You know, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, obviously, you know, I have my own job, and if one person with me ends up to be a child pedophile, like, that doesn't make me a child pedophile, but it's like,
but you're going to
this is the most sensitive group of people in an entire society, like doctors, police officers, EMS.
Yes.
Like, it's like, we need to, I agree with what you're saying, but you know, speaking on the people who can't be in this room right now, there's hopefully, you know, gonna be thousands of people watching the Allen Show, but it's like, they're general thinkers. Like, I'm a general thinker. Like, I'm not, you know, I'm not outlandish with my thoughts, I don't think.
Right. No, and we need people to speak up. I just said that from the very beginning. We don't know what the community wants if they're not going to tell us. We're not going to tell us how they feel unless they tell us. We will support, as a sheriff, as my office, if I get elected, we're going to support the community. We're going to listen to what happened. I'm going to care about what happens if my officer makes a bad choice, right? I'm going to care about that, because at the end of the day, it's a reflection back on our agency, our public trust, and we have to do everything to protect that. And so as a sheriff or any law enforcement officer, they truly are doing a great job. There's thousands. You can Google how many police officers are in the United States, and there's a small percentage that make bad choices. Same thing with doctors, same thing with lawyers. But for whatever reason, police officers get scrutinized more. And I get it. People say because you know the law, but we got to go back. They're human. They made a conscious choice to do what they did. And so it's no different from any profession. But as a sheriff, we have to hold public trust. We need the community behind us. We need community policing. You talked about community policing. You look at the community as a whole. There's a very limited number of police officers driving around patrolling our streets. But how many citizens do we have in our community? Over 100 and something thousand.
Yeah, a lot.
And community policing is a partnership with our community. Sometimes we don't get that partnership, and it just falls on the shoulders of the police. We need the community to help us. We need the community to support us. And so that's why we need to have that public trust. If the public doesn't trust us, our job's going to be hard.
What's your opinion on flock cameras?
So here's what I say about flock cameras. I support them as a law enforcement tool to keep our community safe. What I do not support them as a surveillance program for innocent citizens. As the sheriff, I would not do anything to violate the law. And so for me, I worked investigations many years. We used cameras to solve homicides and crimes. They were very, very useful. So it's all how you use technology. So for me, I support it if it's a law enforcement tool, if it helps us with public safety. I'm not a fan if it's a surveillance program. If elected, I would ensure that we have a policy. And the policy would regulate how do we use that information. So the data, right? How is it stored? How is it accessed? Who has access to it? Who do we share that data with? It has to be only for law enforcement purposes. What is our retention period? And what is our transparency and our accountability to the community? It's a useful tool. It has to just be used right.
For the people watching who don't know what flock cameras are, you know, myself, I am unfamiliar with what they are. What exactly is a flock camera?
So an example is, are you driving on I-25, right, in the construction zone, and you see those signs with cameras? That's a camera. It's taking a picture of your car as you come through. A good example for law enforcement is license plate readers, LPRs. You see them on the back of their patrol cars, and they're taking vehicles, they're looking at license plates, and so it's a tool that law enforcement. So basically, people think it's a surveillance system, But if you use it right, it's a tool for law enforcement. But I understand people's concerns because there is some people that are not protecting that data. They're not having safeguards on it. So that's where the concerns come in.
And it actually goes a little bit more deeper. At what you're completely right with all that, Leroy. It goes a little bit deeper than that, Xander. I just watched a very intricate documentary about it. It's actually owned by a private company, like it states right there, Flock Safety, and it's the amount of money they're charging each city to run one camera every single year. It's absurd. Like will you Google that for us? The amount of money it takes to run one of these Flock cameras. I agree with you. There's good and bad on everything, but it's just the amount of money it takes to run one. I think the efficiency in any government obviously is never the best. The American government spends surplus on anything, on any given thing.
Scroll down.
Yeah,
I think
let's learn this. Let's learn as a group. But I watched this documentary by, his name was, oh man, give him some credit. Let's see.
for running a single flock safety camera.
$2,500 to $3,000 per year, and that's just one camera. So if our city, if it has, how many flock cameras are in Pueblo right now? 100? Less? How many are there? $12. Oh wait. It's actively working to acquire 12 as 70.
Well, we also have to figure out that it's not only flocks. There's other
Right, LPRs are one of them too.
Motorola is one of them.
I mean, I think they're a little bit different. I'm not as familiar with LPR and if who are they owned by and where's the information going, like Leroy was saying. But I know Flock for sure is a private company and they've had some sinister things going on with them and they're already getting taken out of cities.
Agreed, and that's where people's concerns are. But as a sheriff's office, we have to protect the rights of our citizen, right? And so for me, we use them as a tool. We don't use them to surveillance our people. Mm-hmm. And like I said, like any technology, you have to have safeguards on it, and you have to hold people accountable. If you misuse it, and I'm the sheriff, you're going to be disciplined for it. But we have to let the community know is that, hey, it's a tool we can use, because if your child's missing, if we're looking for somebody, you're going to want me to use every tool available to find your missing child, right?
100%.
And that's what those are designed for, to help us in those. Like, again, I'll go back. I don't like them as a surveillance program, but I like them as a tool to help officers do the job to protect the community.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back into kind of what you were saying, what you would do when you get elected for Pueblo County Sheriff, that you would change the leadership. How would you go about changing the leadership within the sheriff's office?
So it starts with me first, right? I have to come up, what is my leadership philosophy? So as a leader, right, when I went to the FBI National Academy, they teach you leadership styles, right? You have to understand your leadership style. Most people will say, I'm this type of a leader, or I'm this type of leader. You have to be I call it a utility leader. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to be that authoritarian when you need to. You need to be that servant leader when you need to. You have to be able to adapt to the circumstances. So for me, I have to come in with a leadership philosophy of how I want my leaders to act. So it starts off with selecting a good undersheriff that has the same vision, same leadership that I have. And then I work my way down through the leadership tree, because you, as a sheriff, you have a command staff. So it comprises of your undersheriff, you have 2 bureau chiefs, and 7 captains. That's your leadership team. I would start there first. And they have to be a leadership team that has the same vision and goals that I want. I'm going to hold them accountable to be trainers, mentors, and respect and care for the people that they lead. That's where it starts. So leadership starts there. Once I have that leadership model set up and I have my team in place, then we can filter that down. But from the leadership style, it has to go down to a culture. The Sheriff's Department, I believe, needs a culture change. We need to go back to being an agency that works together. Right now, if you ask people, sometimes they say there's some division amongst the sheriff's office, right? And so we need an organization that works together with one mission, regardless of your rank, regardless of your assignment, regardless of your bureau. And we all have to work together. And that works as you have one mission, right? We serve the citizens of Pueblo County. We have one standard. We're professional, we're ethical, we're respectful. We have one teamwork. Everybody works together. I don't care what it is. And the last one is you have to have one responsibility, and that's we leave the sheriff's office better than we found it.
Alan Medina was saying that if he wins, he's going to be re I guess reapplying and re-examining his whole cabinet. Do you plan on doing that, or are you gonna leave them how they are?
No, as a good leader, you go and evaluate it. Yes, and that's why I told you I have to have a leadership change, and that's where it starts. You have to start at the top, and then you work your way down through the agency.
So you're ready to
Kinda
get
clean
rid of him.
house.
You're ready to get rid of him if need be.
Yes, if they don't meet my vision and my mission and my philosophy of where I want the agencies to go, then maybe that might not be a position for them. But my goal isn't about a personality about an individual. It's about the agency as a whole. It's about the employees that work there, and ultimately, it's for how we serve Pueblo County best.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's how agencies with this kind of responsibility should go about this kind of situation. Or I kind of lot, but yes, I agree. So my question is it going to be based on like how qualified they are, or them morally, what kind of character they have? It goes into, if they ultimately have to see the vision and leaving it better than where you found it and making Pueblo better. But there's been some...
You don't want all yes men in your cabinet either,
No.
There's been some controversy where an individual is picking someone just because they like them. So with a new structure in place and you're sheriff, are you going about picking an individual based on, the character traits, certifications? Like how are you going to go about that?
So all of that will play a factor. So when I look at it, and I'll give you an example, and I was just reading this policy the other day because, as I've been away from the sheriff's office for 5 years. So I still have a pretty good idea about their policies. So I start reading more because if I'm the sheriff, I want to go in with an idea. You talk about promotions. Right now, there's a rule of 5. If somebody is in the top 5, the sheriff can pick that person and promote them. I don't agree with that. If a person tests...
Well, if they're in the top 5 of like...
So there was 10 people testing, and they rank you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh.
You could take anyone from the first 5 if you want.
You're ranking them on like, this is an intelligence test, or this is like a physical test?
Process. So they do interviews, they do role plays, they do testing.
Who's most fitted for the job?
Yeah, so you go through an entire process. And so then they rank you by a point system. And then right now they can select anyone from the top 5 to be promoted. I don't agree with that. Why do you have a promotional testing, right? To identify who are your best candidates, right? Mm-hmm. If you're number 1 candidate, why wouldn't you promote that person? Why would I pick 5? Does that make sense? So when it comes down to selecting my people, yes, their character, integrity, responsibility. I want education. I want leadership schools. I want all that stuff, because if I have a more balanced leader, so that's my whole philosophy behind my campaign. I'm a balanced leader. I have more than just experience. For 30 years, I have law enforcement experience. I rose up the ranks. I was deputies on both sides of the house. I was a sergeant. I was a lieutenant. I was a command level at all sides, emergency services. So I learned the ins and outs of leadership and experience within the law enforcement world. I believe because I wanted to one day do this, I needed an education. And I look at my education, right? I could have went the criminal justice route where most people, or political, administration, whatever. I purposely chose business. I have an MBA in business because when you look at the sheriff's office, it's a business. I have a $50 million budget. I have human resources to manage. I have over, 300 employees that you have to manage. I got capital projects. I looked at it as a business. So when you look at my leadership, I've been through the FBI National Academy. 1% of nation's law enforcement is selected to go to that. I was fortunate enough to go. It's the premier command leadership school for command officers that want to be sheriffs and police chiefs. So when you look at all that, I tell people my campaign is being about a balanced leader, right? Education, leadership, and experience. That's what I'm going to expect from my leaders.
Is there going to be like an interview process to be selected for that kind of position within the cabinet?
Yeah. So the way it works is lieutenant and below are actually tested positions. So there's a whole testing, interviews. When you get into the captains, chiefs, and undersheriff, they're considered appointed positions. So that's where the sheriff gets to interview and make his determination who's going to sit on his cabinet and who's going to be in there. So yes, it is up to the
See,
sheriff.
I wasn't aware that the sheriff appointed the chief.
Not the chief of police, but the sheriff, the hierarchy of the sheriff. You have the sheriff, he appoints an under sheriff, then he appoints 2 bureau chiefs. Right now we have 2 bureau chiefs, one that goes over the detention bureau, one over the law enforcement, and then we have 7 captains that fall under those 2 bureaus that he appoints. So that captain, bureau chiefs, lieutenant or under sheriff, and the sheriff, that's the command team. Those are appointed positions. So reality is you're attached to the sheriff. So if a new sheriff comes in, they have the option if they want to keep you, or they can you might be looking for a new job, or they can reassign you to another position. But lieutenant and below, those are one where you actually test. So when I got a sergeant, I had to go through an entire promotional testing. I got promoted. Lieutenant was the same way.
I think the best thing, if I was any potential sheriff's career manager, I would say go heavy on the social media, because what you're explaining right here is what the general public doesn't understand and what stops them from going to the polls in the first place.
I agree.
There needs to be, like, if you can condense that into a short TikTok, like, just explain to the people like what you're doing, man, you're gonna really dive into a whole group of really maybe even like unregistered voters, just people that just they don't have the energy to go to the voting polls. And I've experienced that. I got my ass kicked when I ran for mayor, but the people that did vote for me, I think I invigorated them enough to go vote, because they wouldn't have voted, because they don't understand what you're saying. And like, I'm learning so much just from talking to you, but it's I don't know.
And that's my goal over the next 2 months, is to get out and share this stuff with the community, because you're absolutely right. The community doesn't know. I mean, unless somebody comes out and educates them. And that's the goal of the sheriff, is that's that partnership, that relationship with the community. I mean, when the community has questions, we have to be transparent and ready to answer that question, right? And it might be as simple as how did you pick your under sheriff, right? Or how did you pick your bureau chief? Or how does somebody get promoted in your agency? What I will tell you, what I'm super happy about, is our union, right? Our union is going to help streamline a lot of that and keep a lot of that fair.
Do you think, I like you bringing that up, do you think this lawsuit with the union is fair, or it should be dropped?
Well, I'll tell you this. There should never be an adversarial relationship between a sheriff and his people. It always has to be a partnership. So I don't agree with the suit. I'm not there. I didn't file it, right?
What's the suit, fill us in?
I couldn't explain it in detail, but from the outside looking in, it seems like as a union, you have a voice for the people of law enforcement within that agency. And as a sheriff, you have a political, if you want to put it into words, power. So if you take away the voice from the people that you're in charge of, you can ultimately have a final say. So let's say, for example, there's been, let's put a real life example on it. Someone's running for Pueblo County Sheriff, and you're also a sheriff's deputy, and
they get retaliation against them.
And there's
that's what you're saying. They get fired, just like what happened to
Joey.
Yeah, yeah.
and you get fired. That's the decision of the sheriff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a union, you at least have some voice to back you up on that and to fight for you and say, hey, no, this is actually a good deputy you're trying to fire within the agency. This is not right. I don't, just because there's
they're opposing me in the election.
Exactly.
So if you look at the history of Pueblo has been a union town since the 1800s. You had the CF&I, you had the mining industry, you had the railroad industry. There were some work conditions, unfair things that were happening to employees. So that's where the unions really came in and really helped and stabilized the workforce, got them the things that they needed, the wages, the safer work conditions. It's no different today. I was highly encouraged that legislation passed in 2023 that now allows county employees, which are sheriff's employees, to have a union. And here's what I told the union when I visited them is, when I joined the sheriff's office, take a guess what I started, my hourly wage was to start with the sheriff's office.
It was like $4 or $7.
$5 an hour. Who would work for $5 an hour, right? But what I tell people, where I really noticed the disparity, when I promoted up And I had friends in the Pueblo Police Department who had a strong union, who had collective bargaining, who were able to fight, have that one voice for their employees. The salaries started growing, way big difference. Police department, their union, got them good raises, whereas the county, we fell behind. So that's where I noticed that how important a union can be to employees. So when this legislation passed, I was excited for the employees, right? Because now they have a voice. And what I told the union is that what I would like to see if I get elected is I would like to see every member of the office be a member of the union. Because as a sheriff, I would like to go to the county commissioners and I would like to have one voice from my employees. The sheriff supports them, and we go and we talk and we work through these negotiations. My understanding is they're going to have their first contract is going to be signed on Thursday. Super excited for that. And the reason why that is because that starts the foundation moving forward as a future sheriff is we now need to build off of that. And that's the future of the sheriff's office is the union needs to be there to support the employees. They need a sheriff that is a partner with them, not an adversarial, and they have to work together. We never had that in the sheriff's office. So I'm super excited that we have it. I'm 100% in favor of it. And if I'm elected, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that union works the way it's designed to help the employees.
What does that contract mean? That upcoming contract, what is that?
So the way it works, you have to do collective bargaining and you have to agree on certain things from both sides. And once you've agreed, you get a contract and then you go and you sign the contract. So then it kind of holds you to what the sheriff's doing, what the union and employees can do. So like, for instance, I talked a little bit about the promotions, right? I like a union if they come in, and I haven't read their contract, but I would hope that their contract has safeguards on how people are getting promoted. You can't just promote the good old boys person. There has to be guardrails. If someone's being disciplined, you want to make sure that we're following the discipline process for that. They have due process. That means we have to make sure we give them their due process. So for me, the contract really is the guardrails for how the sheriff's administration works and how it works in conjunction with the employees.
So it's like deliverables from both parties.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you think there is a good boys club within the agency that causes this culture?
I think it's everywhere. I mean, it's just not the sheriff's office. Pueblo, I'll be honest with you, it's Pueblo. There's a lot of people connected. There's a lot of people that are related. I mean, back in the day, if you knew somebody, you got a job, right? Now it has to be more fair, and that's what I like what the union will do. It makes it more even across the board for everybody. There's one testing, there's one selection, and you can no longer just say, like I said earlier, the 5, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you pick that top person that they scored the best.
I think this question kind of pertains to that. Xander, do you want to ask it, or do you want me to read it out?
Can we zoom in on the chat a little bit?
No, that's it's impossible with that computer, but I can see it from here if you
Okay,
need.
go ahead.
So this is from someone in the comments at Blow Your Mind says, you received backing from the current administration, and there are persistent rumors regarding who will run operations behind the scenes. Can you stay on record tonight? Yes or no? Will Dave Lucero hold any paid position, advisory role, or badge in your administration?
And thank you for the question. I appreciate it. But if you're on my Facebook, it's been about a month ago. I pinpointed a whole message on this. Plain and simple, Dave Lucero will not be in my administration. He will not hold a seat in my administration, right? He's the sheriff now. You could look at the history of the sheriff's office. There's never been a sitting sheriff to come back and work in that sheriff's office. Unfortunately, people believe that. But I'm doing this because I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to be the change. Would it make sense to bring in another leader? Because what if there's still loyalty to that leader, right? It would make no sense. It would ruin my leadership philosophy of what I want to do, the change I want to do. So for me, that makes no sense. I mean, why would we bring in a sheriff that is no longer the sheriff? We're going to start fresh. We're going to move forward. Do we have to be cognizant of our past? Absolutely. But we also want to make sure we're not making those same mistakes.
I like that answer because it's transparent. And I think in this time within the election, the community is looking for transparency. And there's a lot of questions, like we just read, within the community that people are curious about, either hearsay or just people putting people on blast on social media. So there's a lot of miscommunication, and nobody really knows, the definite answer. So to have you come and kind of be transparent with us and the community of Pueblo is appreciated, and we thank you. I want to ask this question. If you God willing, are in office for Pueblo County Sheriffs, do you have a plan to take action on that lawsuit? Is that something you can do for the union?
Yes, we could have it dismissed. Yeah. And I believe with the signing of the contract, that really is a step in the positive direction. And I think any sheriff that moves in there, they would have the authority to dismiss that lawsuit.
All right, so I'm one of the people that doesn't know this lawsuit still. So what I'm gathering is Dave Lucero is suing for the non-creation of the union. He doesn't want it to happen. What's going on there?
Can I
Can I
go
Google
ahead
this?
and pull that up?
Yeah, if you want. So part of it is it was the interpretation of the legislation that came out.
Okay.
And so there were certain powers that the certain sheriffs, he's not the only one, there's sheriffs around the state that believe that they can't do certain things within it. So they created, in my understanding, you'll have it here, there's a lawsuit going against that legislation and some of the things that they're asking the sheriffs to do.
I don't think put Dave Lucero. Put
Pueblo County Sheriff
Lawsuit.
Union lawsuit.
Yes,
Yeah.
it'll come up.
Yeah, is the 10th Circuit toast? Yeah, I got it.
There is another question that was asked within the chat is, and this is something Alan was also kind of discussing. Do you have any plans to have a collaboration with the chief of police or the police department and the sheriff's office?
So I've already met with the chief. As a leader going into position, you already want to meet with all the heads of the organization. So I had to sit down with the chief of police. And really what I wanted to know is, one, what is the current state of the partnership between the Pueblo Police Department and the sheriff's office? So that's what I wanted to know. How is that partnership working? Two, what is his expectations of the sheriff, right? As another law enforcement leader in our community, what's your expectation of the sheriff? And then we started talking about what could we do to collaborate, because we're both going to be facing huge budget deficits, right? And so it makes sense that we collaborate as much as we can to save the county resources, right? So for me, yes, we will work hand in hand with the police department. We already have a Metro Bomb Squad that we work together with. There may be some other units that we maybe can combine our resources and save the taxpayer dollars. But at the end of the day, we have to be good partners with the Pueblo Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, the Colorado State Patrol, the parks, any law enforcement agency. We have to be good partners with them, and we should be collaborating with all of them.
Go ahead and read that real quick.
So for the people who are unaware of this lawsuit, this is the argument in this lawsuit. David Lucero is arguing that as an elected constitutional officer, a county sheriff is distinct from a general county employer. So that means he's different, meaning a 2022 state collective bargaining law does not apply to his office. So I'm gathering that means David Lucero, he doesn't want to play ball with the union. He wants to do whatever he wants, and he doesn't want the union to dictate what he's going to do. That's basically what that's saying, right?
And that's the stance he took, yes. But the positive thing is that they had a contract signed, so that's a positive thing. And then as a sheriff going in, we have to build on that, and we have to understand where we got to, right? We have to remember what happened with this lawsuit. We have to remember the growing pains for the union. But now we have to focus on the future. We have a contract now, and as an incoming sheriff, that's our focus, is now we have a contract. We can get rid of the lawsuit, whoever takes office, and we focus on the employees.
So you will dismiss it.
100%.
Nice.
So going back to the collaboration, what is the collaboration currently with the police department, and what do you have planned for future collaboration within the two agencies?
Again, so really where collaboration starts is with the leaders. So when I visited with the chief, I wanted to say, hey, what is the relationship between you and the sheriff? Because that's where it starts, right? If your two heads of your organization don't get along, how are the people going to get along, right?
Sure.
So for me, I wanted to meet him face to face. I have a ton of respect for him. And we talked about, what the expectations
What's
were.
his name?
Chris Knoller. He's
Chris
the Pueblo Police Department. Yeah. And we talked about the things, we talked about things that are troubling our community and how can we work together to get better. So example, when we had the old jail, right? We were limited on bed space in the jail. So a lot of the municipal offenders couldn't go to jail because we did not have the bed space for them. So now with the new jail, the sheriff and the chief have worked together and they collaborate. So where now there's a certain amount of bed spaces for municipal. They've agreed on certain crimes, municipal crimes, to where people can go be housed in there. So that's where you start collaborating as far as the outside unit. So we do have a great Metro Bomb unit that we work together, right? Can we assist them with safe streets? Absolutely. We work together in the battle, which is an auto theft task force that we work together with them. So there's a lot of things that we can do. Back in the day, there was talk about combining comm centers. That never happened. But there's a lot of things that, as the sheriff and the chief, we could work together because we're the two agencies, along with State Patrol and everybody else, that are responsible for keeping our citizens safe. Now, we trust the police department to do their job in the city limits. The county takes care of the county, but we can work hand in hand together to make sure our community's safe.
Okay, that makes sense. And a lot of the questions that we're asking is stuff that, I mean, personally, I'm not very knowledgeable on political positions or different roles and responsibilities within the agencies. So I find it valuable to gain knowledge from people who are in office, running for office, or who have the experience within the agency to be able to provide further detail. So I think it's valuable. And one thing that I heard is within specifically the sheriff's office, when the patrol deputies go in for an assignment, they're just given their assignment for that day. Instead of like, okay, you know where your, I guess, district is. Like you're going to be working, the north side of Pueblo West. You're going to be working on the east side of Pueblo West,
They work
Pueblo
sectors,
County.
yeah.
Something like that, for, a period of time for 3 months. So that way the community kind of gets to know the law enforcement officer. The law enforcement officer gets to know the routes and the community a little better, more timely response. So is there, I guess, a better way to go about designating tasks to patrol deputies when they come onto shift, or do you think the current model is working, or do you think it can be improved, is my question.
So yes, anything can be improved, right? So when I look at the model they have right now, it was the same model when I went to patrol. You have a west sector, which is I-25 west to the county line of Fremont. You have the east sector all the way to the Fowler County line. You have north, which is Midway Ranches, all the way to El Paso County, and you have south all the way down to Huerfano County, 2,400 square miles. So you're broken up by I-25. You have east, west, and you have a south district, right? So what they do is they assign deputies to work those sectors, right? And so for a permanent sector, that works in the realm of community policing, because within community policing, you leave officers in that sector for a certain amount of time. You don't want to leave them permanently, but you want them there for a certain amount of time because they get to know the community gets to know them, and they're invested in there. So I'll give you an example. When I used to work graveyards and I would be out east, I would make sure I made all my rounds. I want to make sure all my businesses were checked. I made all that. The next night, what do you think the first thing I came in and did? Was there any crime that the day watch had to handle from my shift? I took personal ownership of that. I wanted to make sure that. And so you can have officers do that through a community policing model. You don't want to leave them in that sector too long, though, because here's the other problem is they then now become unfamiliar with the rest of the county. And so if you've been in one sector for 6 months and I need you to drive to Pueblo West to a certain location and you haven't been out there for 6 months, I would have concerns that maybe it might take you a little longer to get there. Officer safety is paramount, right? We need officers to get there. So yeah, it's a balance, right? Can we improve it? Absolutely. But it all really goes down to is staffing, right? What does our staffing look like? And so we want to make sure first that the officers are safe, right? They have enough coverage in their areas to protect each other, and that they're serving the community the best they can. But when you look at patrol as a whole, yeah, we can improve. We need more people out on the streets, deputies out in the street. That always improves public safety, right? But we have to have a balance, right? We want to use community policing. We want officers to be invested in their sectors, but we also want them to be well-versed with the entire county.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. You bring up a good point, which is, man, this happens, man. It happens when you're just getting into it, and then, boom, you kind of lose your train of thought. That's okay. But I had another question I wanted to get into, and it'll pop back into my head, and I'll ask you. But I like your point of view when you think of it as a business model, because very interested in, as you should be as a community member, where the money's going within your community. So when you talk about the finance side within the agency, what is it the sheriff has control over within the finances?
So you are given a budget from the county. Roughly $50 million was the budget for this year for the sheriff's office. Now, what that is that's broken up into the different bureaus. So the detention bureau has a budget out of that 50 million. The law enforcement has a budget out of that 50 million. The emergency services has a budget out of that, and so does the comm center. So then each one is allocated their salary or their budget. And then out of that, you pay all, basically it's like a checking account. You pay all your expenses out of that. Employees get paid out of that. You buy equipment out of that. You pay overtime out of that. So as the sheriff, you have to get that budget. It's already going to be allocated for the year. You work with the county commissioners. They're in that budget process right now. They're working on their budget. And then once you get assigned your budget, your job as the sheriff is to manage that budget to make sure you're, one, being fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money. You're not wasting money, right? And so you have to make sure that you're using it for the right reasons, for the right purposes, right? And it's accountability and it's transparency because it's the taxpayers' money.
How much does the sheriff make?
Oh, it's pretty high. I don't know exact figures. Over 200,000. Yeah, but that's a salary that's factored into all of that. So when you look at the budget as a whole, the sheriff is responsible for managing that budget. That's why a business, in my mind, a business degree, you have to look at it. So I've already started looking at what my budget would look like if I get elected, and I would do priority-based budgeting. Right? I would take the top priorities, which is obviously staffing. That's your number one priority. You have to make sure that you're paying your staff, that you're taking care of your staff, right? The next thing is you have to look at what about their equipment, right? Do they have equipment that makes them safe? Are they driving cars that have 300,000 miles that are going to break down on the side of the road and they can't get to a call to help the citizens? So you have to look at equipment. A good example right now is the Aspen Acre Fire. Emergency Services Bureau is important to make sure that we manage that budget well. You have to have a sheriff that has experience in emergency management. I've been trained in ICS, NIMS, and you have to be able to take the resources you have and use them wisely because you can see as that fire progressed, it went beyond the capabilities of our county. So that's why you saw other people come in and help us. Overall, the sheriff is responsible for every dollar, and he has to be able to answer for it.
So is this coming from the taxpayers? The
Tax-based.
budget?
Tax-based.
Sandra, I got something just an idea to float into your head. The mayor makes $250,000 a year ish. The sheriff's making $200,000 a year. That's almost $500,000 in those two positions right there in a city. Is that insane to you?
It's pretty insane because we're in a $10 million deficit within Pueblo County, and these are coming from a taxpayers-based
It's just
budget.
two jobs in the city.
Important jobs.
The Pueblo County Sheriff makes $167,000.
Okay.
$30,000 less. I'm sorry. I mean, yes, they're important jobs. Like the mayor, you ask, depends who you ask, I guess. But the sheriff, yes, I agree with you. Man, that is just a crazy idea right there. $500,000 for two jobs.
Look at the private sector though. Those salaries will blow your mind.
Private? What do you mean by
Like
private?
CEOs of private companies. Like look at what some of the major CEOs get just in bonuses. And you think these salaries are high?
I mean,
why do you think we pay so much in consumer products?
But my taxes aren't paying necessarily the.
Your purchases are though.
I mean, yeah, but I have a decision with my dollar. I can choose whether
Correct.
to go to Target and
No,
get
but you need gas. You
cereal.
need food, right? You need those basic necessities. Law enforcement's a basic necessity we need in our communities. And yes, it comes at a cost. It's not free. We have to make sure that we pay our deputies a nice wage. We have to pay our leaders to lead because there's a huge responsibility on their shoulders.
I'm not saying the deputies by any mean are getting paid too much.
They are. They're
Getting paid too much, you think?
Well, not too much.
Not enough.
Yeah, not enough. Yeah, exactly.
That went into the question I kind of lost track of. But do you know how many deputies approximately are within the sheriff's office?
So you have to look at the staffing because it's broken up in different bureaus, but there's over 300 and plus employees there, and it's broken up between law enforcement and detention. So you would have to look at their staffing model of where all the detention officers are, where the law enforcement officers are. So each bureau has a certain amount of employees that work within that thing.
So we have the starting wage is about like 70,000 for a detention deputy. Living, I don't think that's for a detention deputy.
No, that's just Pueblo, Colorado.
Okay.
How much it takes to survive on basic necessities.
So it's about 70,000, 60,000 for a detention deputy within the sheriff's office, and there's approximately over 300 just within different divisions. So if you add all of those up, that's, that's going higher than what the sheriff would be paid. So there's a lot of money within the budget, but I think a big reason why the starting salary is where it's at is because of staffing. And this is like a problem within law enforcement itself.
It needs to be higher. So we, as a society, we have it backwards. Okay, we have good deputies, good police officers, good state patrol. Just today, we had 2 troopers shot.
Heard about that.
Okay, we pay them $70,000 a year, but we'll pay a professional athlete millions to entertain you. But we'll complain about paying deputies and law enforcement officers that protect our community at any moment can give their life for.
I mean, I agree with you. That's it. But we're not paying those NFL players.
Somebody is who buys their tickets.
I mean, yeah, I understand someone is, but we're not. Like we're not.
Maybe you two might not, but
no one
Stadium.
No one in Pueblo is paying for Bo Nix's broken leg surgery. Like no, that's not realistic. It's a idea. I understand the idea you're poking towards, but no, that's not real.
What, paying officers more?
No, I agree with you there. But the CEOs of these companies and these NFL players, like just because they're making $10 million a year, like doesn't mean we can't like look at the city officials, see how much they're making a year. Like there's 2 wrongs don't make a right.
No, it's not that, but it comes back to responsibility to their community. Who has a bigger responsibility to their community? Somebody that is willing to put themselves out there and take office, like a mayor, like a sheriff, like a chief, take on all the responsibility and liability, right? Or somebody that goes out and performs. Nothing against athletes. I like watching football too. But you have to recognize that there has to be a compensation for these people that are willing to go out there and be at the front line and take on the things that could come their way. If a deputy makes a wrong decision in the middle of the night, the sheriff is responsible for that, right? So that's where I say compensation. When you look at compensation, you have to pay for good leaders. Do you want a leader that doesn't care? That could be based off the salaries.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but honestly, I think it speaks more of leadership. When I was running for mayor, I was willing to take a salary cut and donate it right back to the citizens. A real leader is understanding the city. I'm not saying you're a good or bad leader. You seem like a great guy. I really like talking to you. But a real leader is going to understand the development within their city and say, hey, man, I'm making more than 85% of my people that I'm protecting. How could my money better serve this situation? And how could I use my voice to say, hey, everyone around me is getting paid too much. Like, I don't know what the sheriff does compared to a deputy. Like, who's really on the ground? If someone shoots on the ground, who's really going there? Like, that person needs to be paid more, yes. But like the people who are, not necessarily risking their lives hour by hour, let's have a conversation about that.
But it's leadership and it's responsibility and it's liability, and so that comes at a cost. Again, we'll go back to it. Do you want a leader? Okay, this is hypothetical. Your salary is $50,000.
I wish.
Do you think you're going to get a certain candidate pool for $50,000?
No.
No, you'll get a candidate pool, but if you had $150,000, you're going to get a different candidate pool. So what I'm getting at is I want salaries are irrelevant. You want a great leader, no doubt, right? But to be a great leader, they have families. They have kids that go to college just like everybody else. They have bills just like everybody else. They went through the processes to get to that level. I'm not saying or disagreeing that whatever the salaries are. What I'm saying is that we have to pay. That's taxpayers. That's the money. That's the bottom line is we have to pay for good leaders. We have to pay our deputies that are out there. And I will tell you, most budgets between the sheriffs and the police, most of the budget is salary based. It's salaries.
Do you think $167,000 per year for the sheriff is too much or too little?
Well, I think it isn't. I don't think the sheriff is in control of what.
No, David Lucero was definitely. He had a part in his last raise. He was like was in favor of that. We talked about that with Alan and Joey.
I think the sheriff's, because he's elected official, is set by the state. I don't think the county does that. I think there's a contribution. They contribute to his salary. But I think if you go onto the state website, I think depending on what tier county you are, 1, 2, or 3, the state sets the salary for that.
How much should teachers be getting paid?
A lot of money. 100% agree. 160,000 plus.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Would you have an influence in how the starting wages for, or the starting salary for deputies now to kind of increase the staffing? You touched a lot about leadership, and I think that's important to keep retention within your agency, because there's been a lot of people within the agency that have left because they don't like the culture or the structure,
Right.
or they're getting retaliation for little things that they did that they shouldn't have gotten that kind of backlash for. So I think that's a big part in keeping staffing,
Right.
but the other part is also wages too. Does the sheriff, and if the sheriff does have a voice, or at least, the final verdict or some type of verdict, would you increase the starting salary for, a sheriff's deputy within the agency?
Yeah, I would do everything in my power to get every raise I could get for my employees. And that's why I think the union will help. Again, remember, go back to my analogy. I watched the police department, their salaries rise higher than mine because I believe their union had a voice and got them the salaries. That would be my goal as a sheriff. Work to get... you couldn't pay the deputies enough. I worked those streets. I worked this community for 27 years. We put our life on the line out there. You can't put a dollar amount on that. We deserve them to give each one of them as much as we can. But it goes back to what I talked about earlier. To get people to stay, it starts with a culture change. I was asked the question, how am I going to recruit people? I'm not going to start recruiting right away because the internal isn't worked. It needs to be fixed first. People want to work there. If my own employees don't want to stay, how am I going to get somebody to come in and work there, right? So once I fix the internal, then I move outside of that. And I think sometimes we have a small recruitment mentality. We look around our community. We look around here. Oh, who can hire? No, we have to move beyond Pueblo County borders. We need to go up and down the Front Range. We need to go outside our borders of the state. We can go to any military base. There's a bridge program out there that when a military person's leaving and they want to get out and go into a, say, law enforcement career, they'll let them go do a police academy, get out of the military, start their careers. But we have to be a better recruiter, go outside of our borders. I have a friend that works in Gulf Shore. And he told me recruitment is it used to be about what does a sheriff look like? You watch recruitment videos and you'll see. They show you all the cool stuff cops do. He says, you know what this new generation of police want to know? What does my life look like if I live in your community? So a lot of those recruitment videos are showing them what their life looks. We have a great reservoir here. We have great hiking trails. We have skiing. We have whatever. We need to show them what does your life look like if you move to our community, because that's what's important to them. What is your family going to look like when they get here? They know they're coming to work as a police officer. They know what the police job is going to entail. But at the end of the day, would you want a nice, safe community where your family can go out and enjoy it? 100%. So that's how you recruit people. You got to make it inviting for them to come to our community.
I think, and I agree with you saying, and Sandra, to kind of bring this back to what you just said, the money isn't the issue. I think the issue with Pueblo and any city in America is we're misallocating the funds. We're going to flock cameras. Back to that. We're paying for nonsense things like that. It's the sheriff, the current sheriff, David Lucero, they were telling us that he was driving around in a brand new 2026 car. Like, you need some sort of humbleness to be a city servant. I can't have you driving the nicest car, being the most richest person in town, and you're supposed to be protecting me. This is it's like you're bleeding the community at that point. It's absurd. And I think general society agrees with me. This person, Shay Chavez, says 160 isn't a lot, but to me, 160 is it's the difference between thousands of people getting meals every single day. Like it's a lot of money. It's the misallocation of funds in any given city, and that's why I'll end it on my note. But that's
and I agree with you. Let me tell you why I agree with part of that. When I worked there, I drove around old cars that had over 200,000 miles. Okay, I 100% agree. As a command level officer, I should have a job that gets me to a car that gets me to point A and point B. I don't want them breaking down either. But who needs the nice new cars? The guys and gals that are working out on the streets. So
Sure.
you have to make sure that that's where it goes. So I agree. I don't need a fancy car. I'm a very simple person. I don't need a fancy car. I don't even need a big office to lead people. I can do it out on the steps. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that our staff has what they need. And sometimes that's going to cost money. Mm-hmm. That's why I go back to priority-based budgeting. It's the employees, right? The employees' salaries. The employees have the equipment. They have the training that they need. That's your focus, because if 80% of my budget or more is going into salaries, I have to make sure that the employees are taken care of.
Yeah, no, I agree with that statement for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. With your position as sheriff, if you're elected sheriff and you're wanting to bring change, do you plan on going into the agency and talking to the boots on the ground to see what they think would be beneficial to bring a positive change?
So as a sheriff, I'm gonna establish my vision and my mission. So I have a 4 phases that I'm gonna go into as a sheriff's office. What people have to recognize is change is a process. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna happen in 100 days. It's not gonna happen in 50 days. I have a phase program. So my first phase, and I don't have a certain number of days to it, I'm going to go in and listen and assess the organization. I'm going to go in and talk to the people. I'm going to see what are the processes that are going on. I have to evaluate. I've been gone for 5 years. So it'd be unfair for me to go in there and say, I want to change all this right away. So I would go in my first phase, and I'm going to listen and assess. I'm going to learn the organization again, talking to people. Second thing is my phase 2. Then I'm going to start developing a course of action, and I'm going to communicate my vision to my staff. That's the second phase. I don't have a timetable because I don't know how long that's going to take until I get there. Phase 3, it's my implementation phase. I'm going to take my courses of action, my communication, and I'm going to get the employee buy-in, and we're going to implement the courses of actions that we have come together. And then my final phase is I'm going to do an evaluation period. Is it working what I decided I wanted to do, or my command staff is doing, right? So it's a 4-phase approach. That's the way I want to take it. But the biggest thing is I need to go in there and I need to have strong communication. And if you've ever heard this, is I have to communicate the why behind major decisions. I have to go in there and tell the staff, why are we doing this, right? I don't want to go in there and say because I said so, or because I want to give them a good answer as to why we are doing this. I need their buy-in. I need them, because they're the ones that are going to make my course of action work. They're the ones that are going to make sure the detention center is running right. They're going to be the ones that make sure our streets are safe. They're going to make sure our cases are investigated right. They're going to make sure our courts are being secured and all that. But I have to make sure that when I go in there, I have to understand it first, go through that's my phase approach that I want to do. But more importantly, I want to communicate the why to my employees, because they have to know. So I'll give you an example. When I first started at the sheriff's office, we used to have what they call an all-hands meeting. Every year, every employee had to go to a meeting with the sheriff and his command team, and they laid out their vision for the year. I don't know that they do that anymore. I feel that is so important, because we need to keep communication all the way from the top down to the bottom. And so to me, I look at going into this agency, I want to respect the people that are there. I want to respect the processes that are going on. But I have to go in and evaluate that. And it has to take a systematic approach. You can't just go in and make a decision looking from the outside without knowing truly what's going on the inside.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think that not only as a leader, but since you mentioned you have an MBA in business, that's a very strategic model to implement within this position. So I appreciate that insight. I want to dive into one more topic before we close this out. So you mentioned you were a captain for the investigations, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what all did you do within like investigations? Let's say I got charged with murder.
Okay.
Right, and I'm getting
Sorry that happened to you.
I'm getting trialed for this, and then
Right.
however you want to put it. I
Right.
get convicted and I go to prison,
Okay.
but I actually didn't commit the murder. Like I'm innocent. But during the whole interview or investigations process, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm fearing for my life, my time. I don't want to go to prison. This is potentially 10 years of my life, or even 20, that's going to be taken away from me. And I know I'm innocent deep down, but when it comes to an investigation, you watch all these criminal shows, you listen to all these documentaries. One thing I've heard within an investigation in this particular incident is you're going to do what you can to try and get the evidence you need. So you're going to use strategic tactics, and what I mean is like you're gonna pry at them, even if they're innocent. You want to see what kind of information they can give you. You're gonna pry at them a little bit and kind of like test them and see if they'll just admit to it just because they're done with this whole situation. They want to get it done and over with, even though they are innocent, or if they're gonna stick to their guns and stay true to themselves. So within investigations, is this like similar or something like an investigation team would do?
So first of all, stop watching TV.
Yes.
We don't do it that way.
Okay.
That's illegal.
So yes. So my detectives that work for me are all properly trained. Before they handle a case, they have training. It's established. And we have to understand the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment, right? We have to work within those parameters, right? So we don't go out and do like your probate and all that. We follow the evidence. When we do an investigation, we follow the evidence. The evidence leads us down a path, right? As an investigator, all our job is to gather the facts. Okay? We gather the facts. We gather the evidence. We interview people. We do all that stuff. And then when we feel that there's probable cause, if you read what the statute, what probable cause is, then we can take what we have, put it in a package, and give it to the district attorney's office. And then they move forward with the charging and all that. But to be an investigator for me, and even for me, there's hours and hours of training we have to go through. We have to go out and learn how to interview people. We have to learn how to collect evidence. We have to do everything within the confines of the Constitution. And so for me, that's what detectives do, right? Could there be a technicality to where something went wrong? Absolutely. Again, these are human beings. They are subject to making a mistake or an error. But that's part of it. We have to work through that if something like that happens.
The reason why I bring that up is because I read this news article that came out last week where a deputy within Pueblo County, Colorado Springs, three different law enforcement agencies were investigating this arson murder that happened about 10, 12 years ago. And at the time, the evidence said that she was the person who committed the crime. She served time. Years later, it's coming out that she was actually innocent and that the investigations team, pried at her, like I was saying, with different tactics that were inappropriate to get her to say what they wanted in order to get down to, yes, she did it. Let's get this case over with and let's carry on. Do you, is that true or is that false?
Well, let me tell you something. I never Monday morning quarterback anyone. I wasn't in those interviews. I don't know what they did. So I can't say what they did or what they didn't. All you can go by is what you read in the paper. I can't answer to that. I can't speak to what somebody else did. All I can tell you is what I expect from my detectives when they work for me. So I can't answer to what somebody else did, and that, I think that's what you're asking me to do, and I can't.
Yeah, because you see a whole bunch of things within the media, from stuff like this to incidents we've talked about within the beginning of this podcast, and I mean, from the outside looking in, you don't know what's true, what's not true,
Correct.
unless you go and actually talk to people within the organization and kind of get the facts straight.
If it's in the Pueblo Chieftain, it's true.
Right.
That's what they say. I don't, not 100%, but someone who was a captain of investigations, I'm unfamiliar with what all goes into an investigation. Right. So it's new information for me, and I appreciate you kind of telling me what your expectations are for the agency and what your plan is going forward. And I think it's beneficial for the community to get engaged with you, Leroy, and ask you similar questions or deeper questions
100%.
or the questions that they're concerned about, because, like what we're talking about is you want to do this for the community of Pueblo. You would think that a politician, in their own good faith and what your expectation is as a community members, they're doing this for Pueblo. And I mean, just as a community member, I want to see that, and I appreciate you kind of diving into different topics and kind of expressing your plan, your point of view. So again, I just want to thank you for that. And
definitely, I appreciate you. If I'm gonna give you a compliment, you were way more well spoken than the person you're running against. I'll give you that. Yeah, I mean, you answered the questions, with great answers, with class. I know what we kind of. I don't want to be a yes man in any of these conversations. I in my own alone time, I'm pretty quiet and whatnot. But I know I would look like a fool if I just sat here and just let you talk to us instead of talking back to you.
Understand?
So I thank you for your time, and I've definitely probably be voting Leroy over here, guys. To be honest,
Thank you.
To be honest.
And that's my whole mission, is to come out and to give the citizens a choice, right? And so if we're getting ready to close, I just would like to say a couple things, if that's okay with
absolutely.
you guys. So I tell my folks, I'm a leader, right? I'm not standing here saying I have all the answers, right? But like I told you before, I'm a balanced leader. I'm going to bring education, I'm going to bring leadership, and I'm going to bring experience to the sheriff's office. I have a servant's heart. I served this community for 27 years. I served the state of Colorado for 20 years in the military. That's the core of my DNA is service. So you're going to have a service heart. And if I'm elected, I'm going to work every day tirelessly to keep the trust of this community, because they trust me. They elected me and they put me there. And I tell you this, elections are won, right, because people choose to become part of a vision, right? And so what I'm asking the community tonight, share my message, share my campaign with your friends, your families, your neighbors. And when I get your support, you're going to take me one step closer to achieving my vision.
I think that's a fair statement. I also think it would be beneficial on your end to implement what Derek was saying and go on social media and talk about important things within the roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, just break it down really digestibly.
And that's my plan is, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not real well versed in social media. I'm a people person. I like to come and meet people. So I'm going to plan on doing, my campaign manager is going to work on some stuff with me on video. But I have more intentions of going out, making purposeful meetings with people around the community, because I like to look people in their eyes. I like them to look me in the eyes and know what I'm telling them. And you can be a good judge of character when people are talking to you. Oh, yeah. And that's how I want to operate. Yes, we'll do small videos. I agree with you, because there's a lot of information that citizens don't know about the sheriff's office. But
and
more
they're too embarrassed to ask.
No, agreed. Yeah. But I think that's why I want to go out and meet them. And those are the times where ask me the questions. I'll be open and transparent with you. If I have an answer for you, I'll give you an answer. If I don't, I'm not going to give you something that I don't have.
And the face-to-face communication is priceless.
Yes.
But the beauty of social media is you're gonna reach way more eyes that are just sitting on their couch.
I agree.
Because the people that you're gonna go talk to, they're invigorated enough to go meet you.
Right.
Like most people, like I'm saying, our age, they're going. I'm sorry to say, guys, sorry to out you guys. They're going home. They're going out to the bars. They're going, hang out with their friends at the river. They're not going to politically or social meetings like that. They're not going to city council meetings or anything like that.
And I agree with you. So I will thank you for that. I will work on that on me, because that's something I need to learn more of. I have a great teacher right here. I have a great other partner on my team, and we'll do what we can to share more information across the media. But I just encourage citizens, if you want to come see me face to face, please come out. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like there's something that's stopping you. Come out, meet me, shake my hands. I'd love to talk with you. But I will do my part to make sure I'm communicating over social media to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And I think the community will appreciate that as well, because there's value in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but ballots are being mailed out October 5th.
Correct. I believe in October. She'll pull up the dates. It's there in the middle part, first part of October.
Okay.
Yes.
So, folks, you heard it here. The ballots are being mailed out to you, the community of Pueblo, October 5th. And I strongly encourage everyone to reach out to whoever is running for this position. Go to these events, ask the hard questions. Don't be embarrassed, don't be nervous. You as the people, we as the people, should take back the power that the politicians have or are trying to strip from us and voice our First Amendment and have that freedom to do so and go and do it with no fear. So I encourage everybody, before the elections in November, when that ballot gets mailed out, look at the people on the ballot. I'm going to have to do this myself and look at the roles and responsibilities of each one, what they do within the community, how they manage the budget, because that's a big thing. And I feel like as a community member, we're pretty concerned about where the money's going within the community. So I just encourage that to the community, but we're going to end it out right here. And, this was a great conversation to have because now I'm more educated in a lot of different stuff. So again, I just want to say thank you, Leroy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you
great.
guys having me on there.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm like invigorated, for the city of Pueblo. It's awesome to see someone actually, stepping forward to make changes. It seems like shit's just going in the wrong direction, if I'm being honest, especially in this part of town.
This is my town. This is where I grew up. This is where my family lives. This is where my grandchildren will be here. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's safe for everybody.
Right on. I love hearing that.
Yeah, we want that for the future of Pueblo.
Vote Leroy.
Thank you. Yes, vote Leroy.
With that being said, we're going to close out. I'm Xander. This is the All In Show. This is Derek from Street Champs. We are, I want to say I'm a little prideful to have this conversation, or not prideful, but proud to have this conversation and to be able to bring a conversation to the community that the community is wanting, is seeking. So a little pride going on right now, but you know where to find us: social media, the All In Show, Street Champs. Hit that like button, subscribe. Let me know who else you would be interested in seeing on the show who's running for a political position within Pueblo County.
Would you do a sit down with Alan?
So we already have a scheduled debate. So that's going to be happening. Yes. So, I'm open to talk to anybody.
I've been a part of those debates.
Yes.
Is it at the Memorial Hall or Fortune Pueblo?
This one's going to be at Pueblo Community College, put on by the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems they never give you appropriate amount of time to answer completely and well thought out. I think I would. It's nice to have a unencumbered, unfiltered, untimed conversation. I would love to see that.
I agree.
That would be very valuable. Guys, the All In Show. Let me know who you want on this couch, and we will go live, and we'll answer questions from the community, from the people, from you, because this is for the community. I'm a member of the community, and I take pride in living in Pueblo and wanting to educate myself on what's going on and where the money's going and who's has this future for Pueblo to get it in the right direction. So let me know who you want on this couch. I have Kim Archuleta coming on. She is the treasurer, if I am not mistaken, and I am unfamiliar with what the treasurer does. So again, that goes back into just wanting to seek knowledge for myself, but for the community. So feel free to reach out and ask me questions that you want answered for that interview. And if it would be a good fit to go live to answer more questions. But we're going to end it out here. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And this has been the All In Show, baby. We went all in, had a real conversation, raw talk. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.